So I wanted to talk today about why follow a carnivore diet. So I'm A-Day, otherwise known as Black Carnivore, and here we talk about all things carnivore for the culture. And if you are new here, welcome. And if you are regular, welcome back. Thanks so much for supporting and to continue to watch my videos. So, like I said, I wanted to talk about why do carnivore. I talk a lot about how to do it and what to do and what to buy and what approach to take. But I don't always talk about why. So I wanted to focus on that today. And, I think that there are two basic reasons to follow a carnivore diet. One, it is a ketogenic diet, so all the benefits that you get from following a ketogenic diet, you get on carnivore. And, when I first started keto, that was like back in 2015, and, there wasn't a whole lot of science about it, and, obviously the world was very hostile to doing keto, so it was very, something that you kind of had to go out on a limb. There wasn't a whole lot of science to support it. But now there's so much more research, there's so much more science, and there's so much more explanation for the benefits and why it works so well to reverse metabolic disease. It works really well for people with insulin resistance or diabetes. It works well for high blood pressure, for stroke. It works well for cardiovascular disease, and it works. There are many who say that it really works in preventing cancer. Not going to go so far as to say, to reverse cancer or anything like that, but it seems to really deal with all of the issues that stem from metabolic syndrome or metabolic diseases, and that's the bulk of what is what's damaging to us today. The things that people die from, are diabetes, stroke, heart disease, and cancer. So if you can find a way to eat that actually puts a dent in those things, I think that's huge and totally worth doing. Insulin resistance, I don't know about you, but certainly for me, I've seen the ravages of insulin resistance and diabetes on the body, and that is a horrible way to go. I think, anything you can do to slow down or reverse or stop that disease is incredibly important. And I know that I want to stay off medications. My mom and my grandmother, as they got into their older years, were taking handfuls of medications every day to deal with, with these diseases. And I really want to stay off medication. I want to be a person who doesn't take any medications. So that's really important to me. And, and of course, I don't want to get cancer. I saw my mom passed of cancer. I saw what that did. I saw how tough that was. And, of course, anything I can do to avoid it, certainly, I want to try to do. So I think for that reason, a low-carb lifestyle is always on the table for me. And I think for everyone is going to do better doing a low-carb lifestyle. Maybe there's a tiny portion of the population that can thrive on a high-carb diet, but I'm not one of them, and I don't think I know any of those people. So, if you are one of those people, great, keep going and keep doing what you're doing. But, if you struggle and if you're not as healthy as you want to be, as slim as you want to be, as energetic as you want to be, as mentally fit as you want to be, then I would say, look to the low carb end. Now, there's a lot of places where you can be on the low carb spectrum from, just eating, let's say, under 100 grams of carbs a day, where, you might still be running on, you might still have more sugar in your system, but you're still lower carb than, the average American. or, you know, all the way down to less than 20 grams a day. And so you're still eating some vegetables, but you're very low, or all the way down to carnivore, where you're really just eating from protein and fat. You know, where you land in that spectrum really kind of depends, one, on your goals, and two, on your lifestyle and what you feel like doing. So if you feel like carnivore, I recommend it. I think it's great. So that's one reason. And then number two, I think that carnivore gives you something that you cannot get on keto, and that is the ability to bring your inflammation down to an all-time low. Now, I think, so a lot of people, you know, it's a little bit hard to believe, but you know, many of us are really irritated and inflamed by the foods that we're eating. You know, I think for most people, vegetable oils are incredibly inflammatory and damaging. So that's a big source of the inflammation. And so once you take out all of the plant foods, the nuts, any, you know, fried foods that you're eating out that are being fried in vegetable oil, once you take all of that kind of stuff out, you know, you're going to see that your inflammation is down very, very low. Now, it's possible to do that on a strict keto diet where you're not eating nuts, and you know, so you might still be able to have some vegetable matter. But for some people, perhaps not everyone, but for some people, vegetables, certain kind of plant foods can be inflammatory as well. So as you probably have heard some people talk about, animals have claws, they can run, they can, you know, they can figure out ways to get away, they have ways to defend themselves, but plants can't move, right? So their defense mechanism is entirely chemical. And so that can be the problem. Now, you know, their chemical defenses are mostly aimed towards insects because that's their main predator. However, that doesn't mean that those chemicals that they're creating that are designed to, you know, kill or, you know, severely maim or sterilize, you know, the insects, just because it's a smaller amount doesn't mean that it doesn't have an impact on us. And so some of us can be irritated and inflamed by the plant foods that we're eating. Now, some people would argue that a small amount of an irritant makes us stronger, and that's called hormesis. You know, maybe, but for some of us, it's just irritating, and it's just causing inflammation and making things worse for us. So when you go on a carnivore diet, you're taking out all of the things that could potentially cause any kind of inflammation, and you're bringing your inflammation down to an all-time low, and perhaps an all-time low than you have ever experienced in your life. So many people, when they're doing this and doing carnivore, they're finding, you know, not only are they, you know, like feeling great and in ketosis, but, you know, skin conditions are coming down. You know, all the aches and pains that they used to have are really disappearing or coming down to an all-time low. You know, inflammation that they've had for years disappearing. And then remember that you can have inflammation in your brain as well, which contributes to mood disorders, to brain fog, and to, you know, a lot of anxiety. And so a lot of people notice when they go on carnivore, anxiety comes down to an all-time low. Depression is starting to disappear. You know, mental acuity is coming back. So these are all, you know, signs of inflammation. So when I say, you know, bringing inflammation to an all-time low, it's not just like, oh, my ankles aren't puffy. I mean, it's like your whole body changes. You know, inflammation has a huge impact everywhere. And in fact, chronic inflammation is one of the, you know, the contributors to cancer. So, you know, when I say, you know, you can bring your inflammation down, that has a you know, huge impact. I mean, it can help you, you know, push off cancer for a much longer time. So, you know, so these are the things that I think are the benefits of doing a carnivore diet over any other low carb approach. You really are able to get to the pinnacle of health and well-being for your body. Now, not everybody needs to stay there. So, once you get there and you have an opportunity to experience it, then you can decide, how important that feeling is versus this other food that you want to eat. And you can kind of move fluidly back and forth between a low carb approach, a keto approach, and a carnivore approach. And in fact, one of my clients said, or asked, what would be the least problematic foods, plant foods to have, so that when they went to like a barbecue or a party or a dinner party, there was something that they could eat that wasn't, that didn't make them feel like they stood out as a carnivore, but it wasn't going to be too much of a big deal. And I thought that was a great question. So, it's not about like being carnivore every second for the rest of your life, never doing anything, never, eating anything that was of the plant kingdom, but it was more about, how to make it fit into your lifestyle in a way that makes you feel comfortable. So, my answer was probably fruit is probably the thing that is most, is going to be the least problematic, in the sense that, fruit is the food that the plant has, essentially designated to be eaten and, taken elsewhere, excreted elsewhere, and the seeds of that plant then go on to grow. So that would be, I think that's the best way to kind of think about it. And you can choose low sugar fruits like avocados, olives, berries, blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, and so on. So I encourage you to kind of think about it that way, and also squash. Those are also fruits. Cucumbers, also fruits. So see how those do for you, and and sort of keep that in your back pocket, so to speak, for when you go to parties and stuff. Okay, so I hope that helps answer some of your questions. Again, sorry about the noise. I don't know what is going on in the world. It's so quiet normally on my, little Brooklyn street. But anyway, it was good to talk to you today, and I'll talk to you soon. Carnivore for the culture.